What if the single biggest obstacle between you and the version of yourself you keep promising to become isn't a lack of discipline, time, or resources, but a hidden, exhausting habit you haven't even named yet? You wake up, and before your feet hit the floor, you are already plugged in. You are checking messages, absorbing the opinions of strangers, and reacting to the chaos of a world that thrives on your lack of focus. You talk about your plans before you've laid a single brick. You justify your choices to people who aren't even invested in your growth. You broadcast your struggles, seeking a validation that never truly satisfies. Every word spoken prematurely, every reaction given to a trivial annoyance, and every ounce of energy spent seeking external approval is a leak in your personal power. The ancient Stoics understood something we have largely forgotten. The difference between a person who is driven by the world and a person who drives their own destiny is the ability to withdraw, observe, and remain silent. Today, we are going to dismantle the psychological traps that keep you reacting to life rather than mastering it. We aren't just talking about being quiet. We are talking about a radical shift in how you inhabit your own existence. This is not about self-improvement. It is about reclaiming the sovereignty of your own mind. If you are ready to stop performing for the gallery and start building your own reality, you are in the right place. Let's begin. Most people believe their biggest problem is procrastination or a lack of motivation. They blame their environment, their schedule, or the people around them. But there is a far more dangerous, invisible thief stealing your potential every single day: the compulsion to signal your value to others. We live in an era of constant performance. We are conditioned to believe that if a goal isn't shared, it isn't real. If a struggle isn't vocalized, it isn't valid. If a success isn't acknowledged by the crowd, it doesn't carry weight. This is a profound error in judgment. The moment you announce an intention, whether it's a fitness goal, a business idea, or a lifestyle change, you trigger a psychological phenomenon often called social reality. Your brain receives a hit of dopamine, the same hit you would get from actually achieving the goal. You have successfully tricked your mind into believing you have already made progress because you've received the social validation of having the plan. This is why so many people get trapped in the loop of talking about what they are going to do, while the actual work remains untouched. You are effectively sabotaging your own hunger for success by satiating it with empty words. Furthermore, this need to speak, explain, and justify creates an open window for external influence. When you make your plans public, you invite feedback, skepticism, and unsolicited advice into your mental workspace. You create an environment where you are constantly defending your path against people who do not have the vision to understand it. You are leaking the vital energy required for execution into the void of social noise. The Stoic perspective offers a different path: extreme internal containment. Epictetus famously taught that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. By constantly broadcasting our intentions, we are essentially walking around with our doors open, letting any passing thought or criticism disturb our inner order. You must recognize that your energy is a finite resource. Every time you explain your reasoning, you are spending energy that could have been used to deepen your focus. The problem isn't that you lack talent. It's that you are diluting your power by spreading it across too many external touchpoints. You are prioritizing the perception of progress over the substance of it. If you want to stop being a spectator in your own life and start being the architect, you have to seal these leaks. You must learn that your worth does not require a witness. You are the only person who needs to know the weight of your own ambition. Most people spend their lives reacting. Few learn the power of remaining calm, silent, and in control. If something in today's message resonated deeply with you, it's because a stronger version of yourself is trying to emerge. Thousands have already discovered the principles inside the silent power, and many say they wish they had learned them years earlier. +5. Exclusive bonuses. The Silent Power reveals timeless Stoic lessons for mastering emotions, building unshakable confidence, commanding respect without speaking, and developing the mental strength that cannot be broken by criticism, rejection, or adversity. The question is simple: will you continue reacting to life, or start mastering it? Get instant access through the first pinned comment and begin your journey toward true self-mastery today. If the first step toward sovereignty is recognizing that you have been leaking power through constant external signaling, the second step is identifying the specific mechanism that keeps you trapped: the subconscious addiction to permission. We are raised in a system that conditions us to seek validation from the moment we enter a classroom. We raise our hands for permission to speak. We follow rubrics for permission to succeed. We look to authority figures to confirm we are on the right path. This conditioning doesn't end when you graduate. It follows you into your career, your relationships, and your personal projects. You have developed a reflex where you don't fully green-light your own ideas until someone else, or the collective consensus, approves of them. This is the psychological error that keeps you stagnant. You aren't failing because you lack ability. You are failing because you are waiting for a signal from the world that you are allowed to excel. Think about your recent goals. How many times have you hesitated to start a project because you were waiting to feel ready, or because you wanted someone else to tell you that your idea was good? You are effectively outsourcing your confidence. By seeking external permission, you are implicitly stating that your own judgment is insufficient. The Stoics viewed this as a surrender of the hegemonikon, or the ruling faculty of the mind. When you wait for others to define your worth, you hand them the keys to your internal kingdom. Consider the imposter syndrome that plagues so many. It is simply the fear that someone will discover you haven't been granted the right to be where you are. But true masters, the people who actually change the course of their lives, never wait for permission. They don't check the polls before deciding to act. They define their own value and execute on their own terms. You must realize that the world will never give you permission to be great, because greatness by definition disrupts the status quo. If you wait for the crowd to agree with your vision, you will wait forever. You are currently trapped in a loop where your need for safety, validation, is constantly overriding your need for growth, execution. To break this, you must realize that you are your own final authority. The silence we discussed earlier isn't just about not talking. It's about creating the mental space to hear your own voice above the noise of those who would tell you to stay in your lane. You are currently holding yourself back, waiting for a green light that will never come from the outside. You have to learn to switch the light to green yourself. That is the only way to move from being a participant in someone else's plan to becoming the architect of your own. Viral title options: the 5-minute Stoic habit that resets your brain. Why your morning routine is sabotaging your entire day. The silent first hour, a Stoic blueprint for peak focus. Stop reacting, the secret daily practice of ancient masters. How to build unshakable mental clarity in under 5 minutes thumbnail. Text options: the 5-minute fix. Stop the morning leak. Master your start. The Stoic reset. Silence your morning. Chapter 3. The Zero Input Protocol. We have identified that the modern individual is suffering from a leaky psyche, constantly hemorrhaging focus to external demands. We have addressed the psychological illusion of permission that keeps you perpetually stuck. Now, we must move from theory to the physical reality of your day. Most people fail to control their minds because they grant the world access to their brain before their brain has even finished waking up. The Stoic habit. I want to introduce to you, one rarely practiced in our age of instant connectivity, is the zero input protocol. This is not meditation in the traditional sense. It is a tactical deployment of silence. The rule is simple, yet brutal. For the first 30 to 60 minutes of your day, you consume absolutely zero external information. No social media, no emails, no news, no podcasts, and no conversations. You are effectively offline. Why does this work? From a psychological standpoint, your brain is most susceptible to priming in the minutes immediately following sleep. When you check your phone the moment you wake up, you are loading your brain with someone else's agenda. You are reading about a tragedy halfway across the world, a competitor's success, or a passive-aggressive email from a colleague. You are effectively handing the remote control of your emotional state to strangers. By the time you actually start your day, your nervous system is already in a state of high-alert, reactive stress. The Stoic masters, like Marcus Aurelius, understood that the morning is the foundation upon which the entire architecture of the day is built. If the foundation is porous and cluttered with the opinions and crises of others, the house will not stand. By observing zero-input silence, you perform a cognitive sweep. You force your brain to generate its own thoughts rather than consuming someone else's. You create a void that your own priorities, and only your own priorities, must fill. This is where you practice the art of self-correction. In this period of silence, you ask yourself the fundamental question: what is the one thing today that, if completed, makes all other tasks easier or unnecessary? You don't ask what you have to do. You ask what you choose to do based on your long-term vision. The struggle, of course, is the withdrawal. Your brain will scream for input. You will feel an itch to check your notifications because you are addicted to the noise of the world. That itch is exactly the signal that you are regaining your power. Each time you resist that impulse and remain in your own company, you are physically strengthening the neural pathways of self-regulation. You are transitioning from a vessel that is filled by others to a spring that produces from within. This is not about asceticism. It is about strategic preservation. You cannot command your day if you have already surrendered your mind to the chaos of the world before you've even had your coffee. Practice the zero-input protocol for 3 days, and you will notice a tectonic shift in your ability to concentrate. You aren't just starting your day, you are claiming it. Viral title options: Why Your Brain Secretly Craves Chaos and How to Stop It. The Biological Trap of Being Always On. Why You Can't Stop Reacting. The Science of Stoic Restraint. The Neuroscience of Your Distractions. Stop Being a Slave to Your Own Biology. The Stoic Secret Thumbnail Text Options. Brain Hacked. The Biology of Chaos. Stop Reacting. Your brain is lying. Stoic Brain Hack. Chapter 4. The Neurology of the Reactive Self. To truly understand why silence and self-focus are so difficult, we must move beyond philosophy and look at the hard wiring of the human brain. You are not bad at focus because you lack character. You are struggling against millions of years of evolutionary programming that is actively working against your modern goals. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain is a survival machine, not a happiness machine. For most of human history, silence and internal focus were actually dangerous. If you were sitting quietly, you weren't scanning the horizon for predators. If you weren't paying attention to the chatter of your tribe, you were missing critical social cues that could get you ostracized. And in the ancient world, being cast out meant death. Your brain evolved to prioritize external input over internal reflection. We possess a system known as the orienting response. This is the involuntary reflex that pulls your attention toward any sudden change in your environment. A ping, a flash, a voice, a notification. Your brain interprets these signals as potentially vital information for your survival. When your phone vibrates in your pocket, your amygdala, the ancient threat detection center, fires a signal that says, "Pay attention, this is important." The problem is that your modern world is filled with super-stimuli. These are digital inputs designed to hijack your orienting response. Every like, every breaking news alert, and every email is essentially a digital predator or a social signal that your brain is hardwired to fear missing. This is why you feel a physical, almost painful anxiety when you try to sit in silence. You aren't just bored. You are experiencing a biological withdrawal from the constant stream of external validation that your brain has learned to depend on for safety. The Stoics, without the benefit of modern neuroscience, intuitively understood this battle. They knew that human beings were social animals who were naturally prone to wanting to fit in and know what everyone else was doing. They recognized that the prohairesis, our capacity for choice, is constantly being fought over by these lower, primitive impulses. When you decide to focus on yourself and stay silent, you are doing something revolutionary. You are overriding your biology. You are telling your amygdala that the ping of the phone is not a threat, that the opinion of the crowd is not a requirement for survival. This is why it feels uncomfortable or wrong at first. You are literally rewiring your neural pathways. You are moving from a state of reactive survival, where you are a slave to every passing stimulus, to a state of sovereign control, where you decide which signals are worthy of your limited cognitive resources. By practicing silence, you're effectively training your brain to ignore the false alarms that keep you in a state of high alert anxiety. You are building the neurological equivalent of a filter that protects your focus. This is the physiological foundation of self-mastery. Once you understand that your brain is trying to save you by keeping you distracted, you can stop fighting yourself and start systematically recalibrating your focus toward what actually matters to your long-term success. Viral title options. The Stoic general who conquered chaos without saying a word. How Marcus Aurelius mastered silence in the middle of war. The secret strategy of ancient leaders. Silence as a weapon. Why the greatest Stoic emperor refused to explain himself from the battlefield to the throne. The Stoic art of quiet command. Thumbnail text. Options. The emperor's secret. Silent command. Warrior's discipline. Master of silence. The emperor's choice. Chapter 5. The Emperor's Discipline. We have explored the modern traps, the biology of distraction, and the protocols of silence. But philosophy remains mere theory until it is tested in the crucible of reality. To truly understand the power of silence, we must look to the man who carried the weight of the known world on his shoulders. Marcus Aurelius. History often paints Marcus Aurelius as a calm, philosophical figure, but his reality was one of constant, brutal crisis. He spent years on the frozen frontiers of the Danube, commanding legions against Germanic tribes, while simultaneously managing a plague that decimated Rome, a rebellious general, and the internal rot of a crumbling administration. In the middle of this maelstrom, most men would have been screaming, justifying, and frantically seeking counsel from every advisor available. They would have been shouting to the world about their hardships to garner sympathy and support. Marcus did the opposite. He retreated into the inner citadel. When his most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, betrayed him and declared himself emperor, the Roman world exploded into panic. Rumors spread, the Senate feared for its life, and his soldiers were unsettled. The standard response for a ruler in such a position was a public display of outrage, a massive propaganda campaign to denounce the traitor, and a desperate attempt to explain his own virtue to the masses. Marcus stayed silent. He didn't rush to the Senate to justify his rule. He didn't issue angry proclamations. Instead, he maintained his daily routine of reflection. When he finally addressed his troops, he expressed not hatred for the traitor, but pity. He wished the traitor had lived so he could have forgiven him personally. He remained unfazed by the betrayal because his sense of worth was not tied to the crown, it was tied to his character. He understood that the only thing that could truly harm him was not the rebellion of an army, but the rebellion of his own temper and the loss of his own reason. This is the Stoic example of silent command. It is the realization that true authority does not come from your title, your public declarations, or your ability to dominate a conversation. True authority is a byproduct of being unshakable. When Marcus Aurelius encountered chaos, he used it as raw material for his own growth. He didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" He asked, "How can I act with justice and temperance in this moment?" This historical example provides a crucial pivot. Silence is not the absence of action. It is the presence of deliberation. Marcus didn't just stay quiet. He channeled the energy that others would have wasted on outrage into the strategic governance of his empire. He turned the volume of the world down so he could hear the dictates of his own conscience. When you face your own betrayals, whether it's a career setback, a sudden loss, or the criticism of peers, do you become the frantic ruler, demanding validation from others? Or do you follow the path of the emperor? You don't need a crown to practice this. The moment you decide that your internal integrity is more important than your external reputation, you have already begun to command your life like an emperor. You learn that the most powerful response to any crisis is often no response at all. Just a calm, calculated return to the work that truly matters. Viral title options, the Stoic Audit, a 3-step exercise to reclaim your life. Stop explaining, start executing, the ultimate Stoic challenge. The invisible practice that separates winners from losers, how to force yourself to stay silent, and why you must. The 24-hour Stoic Reset, take back your mental sovereignty thumbnail. Text options, the Stoic Audit. 24-hour Reset. Silence is a weapon. Stop explaining. Practical Mastery. Chapter 6. The Practical Crucible of the Stoic Audit. Up until now, we have discussed the philosophy, the neuroscience, and the historical precedents of silence. But philosophy without application is merely entertainment. To transform your identity, you must move from the realm of ideas into the arena of physical practice. If you want to know if you have truly internalized the power of silence, you need a way to measure your progress, a Stoic audit. Most people live in a blur, unable to distinguish between a productive day and a reactive one. The Stoic audit is an exercise in radical honesty. For the next 24 hours, you are going to track every time you feel the urge to leak your power. This isn't about shaming yourself, it's about data collection. You cannot manage what you do not measure. Here is your practical protocol. Keep a small notebook or a dedicated note on your phone. Throughout the day, whenever you feel the impulse to do any of the following, record it. The impulse to announce, you start to tell someone about a goal or a project that isn't finished yet. The impulse to justify, someone challenges you or questions your path, and you feel a burning need to explain your reasoning to win their approval. The impulse to react. You receive an annoying email, a rude text, or bad news, and you feel an immediate physical surge of anger or stress that compels you to reply instantly. When you notice these impulses, do not fight them with force. Simply write them down. By noting them, you move from being a slave to your impulses to being an observer of them. You create a psychological gap between the stimulus and your response. This gap is the birthplace of your freedom. If you are tempted to post on social media to seek validation, delay it by 1 hour. If you feel the urge to send a defensive text, delete the draft and wait 3 hours. You will find that after that time passes, the urgent need to speak will have evaporated. You will realize that the world did not end because you stayed silent and your reputation remained perfectly intact. This is not a temporary trick. It is a way to build the muscle of restraint. Every time you consciously choose to wait, you are performing a rep in the gym of the mind. You are proving to yourself that your ego is not the pilot of your life. This exercise will show you exactly how often you are living for an audience. It will show you where you are fragile. It will highlight the specific people or situations that trigger your need for validation. Once you have this map, you can begin to surgically remove these leaks from your life. You stop being a spectator of your own chaos and become the researcher of your own soul. You aren't just trying to be stoic. You are scientifically deconstructing your weaknesses until only your strength remains. Most people spend their lives reacting. Few learn the power of remaining calm, silent, and in control. If something in today's message resonated deeply with you, it's because a stronger version of yourself is trying to emerge. Thousands have already discovered the principles inside the silent power, and many say they wish they had learned them years earlier. Plus 5 exclusive bonuses. The silent power reveals timeless stoic lessons for mastering emotions, building unshakable confidence, commanding respect without speaking, and developing the mental strength that cannot be broken by criticism, rejection, or adversity. The question is simple. Will you continue reacting to life, or start mastering it? Get instant access through the first pinned comment and begin your journey toward true self-mastery today. Viral title options: The Final Shift, Becoming Unstoppable Through Silence. Stoic Awakening, the day your entire life changes. The Silent Sovereign, why your new identity starts today. How to permanently rewire your brain for stoic strength beyond discipline. The final step to radical self-mastery. Thumbnail text options: The Final Shift. You are unstoppable. The Awakening. Silent Sovereign. Master your life. Chapter 7. The Final Awakening, Reclaiming Your Sovereignty. We have traveled from the invisible theft of your energy to the biological battle for your attention, through the disciplined silence of an emperor and into the precise practice of the Stoic audit. You have stripped away the layers of social conditioning, identified the triggers that keep you in a reactive loop, and begun the process of internal redirection. But now, we must address the ultimate transformation. The shift in identity. You are no longer the person who seeks the crowd's permission. You are no longer the person who feels a frantic, biological need to broadcast every intention to prove your existence. You are transitioning into what the Stoics called the autarkies, the self-sufficient one. This is not about arrogance. It is about the profound realization that your value is not a variable, but a constant. It is not something you negotiate with the world. It is something you possess by virtue of being human and aligning yourself with reason. Most people believe that growth is about adding more to their lives, more information, more connections, more noise. You now understand that true growth is subtractive. It is the process of removing everything that is not you. By practicing silence, you are stripping away the social costume you have worn for years. You are peeling back the layers of validation-seeking, insecurity, and reactive urgency. What remains at the end of this process is the core of your character, the only part of you that truly matters. This final awakening is the understanding that you are not a product of your environment. You are the architect of your own character. Every time you choose silence, every time you choose to internalize your focus rather than broadcast it, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. You are moving from a state of becoming through external opinion to a state of being through internal integrity. This is the ultimate freedom. When you no longer need the world to validate your progress, the world can no longer hold you hostage. You can face criticism without crumbling, failure without despair, and success without arrogance. You are rooted in a reality that you define, not one that is dictated by the latest trend, the loudest voice, or the most demanding distraction. You have now learned the mechanism. You have the tools, The silence is no longer a void. It is the space where your power resides. It is the canvas upon which you will build your masterpiece. Do not let the world pull you back into the noise. Protect the silence you have cultivated. It is the most precious resource you possess. You are now prepared to walk into the world not as a victim of its chaos, but as a sovereign force within it. Your life is no longer a response. It is a declaration.